The blizzard outside smothered the streets in thick layers of snow, the noises of the city echoing distant sirens, like a choir of spectacular irony and dread. Pacing inside my apartment, I thumbed through my game collection, trying to find a title worthy of Christmas cheer. The trouble with Christmas games being that they're often sanguine, dull, and tacky, all in one mixture. A broth of twee whimsy and bad controls. I had to try something different, something not too far removed from the festivities but also worth playing. Finally I found it, an unassuming disc tucked away in a forgotten nook of my collection. The disc was simple, a sleeveless case with the words Max Payne etched in black on its speculum surface. A game about a vigilante cop killing his problems away in the midst of a New York blizzard. Sounds merry enough for me. Max Payne is a third-person shooter seen by most as the pioneer for the use of bullet time in video games. It would be a mistake to say it was the first it was ever implemented, but it was certainly the gold standard upon its release. Playing the tutorial, we clearly identify the gameplay loop of the title. Pick up guns, kill bad guys, try not to die, and if you want to do Matrix or John Woo impression while you're there, knock yourself out. The reason why all the killing must be done is demonstrated in the first part of the game. Our protagonist Max Payne gets home from another day in the office. He's a policeman who has a loving family waiting for him at home whilst he fights the good fight locking up bad guys. That is until the bad guys get into his home. We make our way through our suburban haven, finding graffiti on the walls and waves of screaming, taunting us to the upstairs bedrooms. We first see Max's baby daughter, murdered in her crib. As we race to our wife's aid, we confront men armed with pistols. We kill the remaining drugged up thugs, only to find our wife's corpse adorning the marital bed. Max lets out a scream, and our motivation of vengeance is set in motion. It turns out the thugs were high on Valkyr, a street drug that's slowly consuming New York and filling the pockets of mob bosses along the way. Max then makes it his duty to find those responsible for the distribution of the drug and orchestrators of his family's butchering. The story is told primarily through comic strips like that you would see in a graphic novel, a cost-effective way for the studio at the time to create vivid scenes and plot twists using real-life actors and still images. It's an effective means to tell the story in a memorable and stylistic manner. Sam Lake, the writer of not only Max Payne but also Quantum Break and Alan Wake, gave his likeness to Max's character, with even his mother portraying the game's main antagonist. Though as we progress through the game, we find our enemies all tend to function the same way. This is a humanoid killing shooting gallery. There are no animals, machines, turrets or vehicles which spice up the enemy encounters, with the exception of a helicopter which makes an appearance near the end of the game. Enemies as such improve in tier as time goes by. From mafiosos, Russian mobsters, paramilitary soldiers, corrupt police officers, corporate security guards, and even shady secret agents. There are a lot of copy-pasted assets, but for the time it was an impressive showcase of how third-person shooters were evolving, past the foundations of titles such as Tomb Raider and Siphon Filter. Just be wary of some of the enemy facial expressions. Moving on. To clean the streets of corruption, we use the old-fashioned means of overwhelming firepower. Max can wield an extensive array of weaponry ranging from baseball bats, dual-wielding pistols, shotguns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, grenades, grenade launchers, Molotov cocktails, and even dual-wielding Uzis. Due to the nature of Max's ability to slow down time and dive into Matrix mode, the bullets actually move slightly slower than other games in the genre. This allows Max to weave past deadly shots and sharpshoot enemies in their intended paths. Plus each time Max kills someone, his bullet time meter fills up a bit, and each time he takes a dive, some of that meter is depleted. Max's health bar is represented by his own silhouette, which fills red as you take damage. To this end, Max can stockpile painkillers in his inventory to help ease the damage you take, but it takes some time for the pills to kick in. However, some weapons such as the shotgun and sniper rifle have limited utility as the game increases its deployment of enemies in large groups. As such, some weapons also become useless as you unlock better weapons as you progress. The Colt Commando assault rifle being powerful enough to dwarf the utility of guns such as the Beretta pistols, Desert Eagle, and lowly lead pipe. Though the game's fluid combat holds up very well even by today's standards, even with the game's most glaring flaw in mind, it's platforming. This game's platforming makes me sick. One area of the game sticks in my mind more than most. You get to this club called Ragnarok, and at one point you make your way to the roof and need to walk across some thin structures to progress. Max has this strange way in which he moves his hips in a circular manner, so it's easy when you're reorienting your view for him to slip and fall. Not to mention that the PS2 version of the game doesn't include mid-level checkpoints, so if you die in this version of the game, you need to start the level all over again. Most levels can be finished in a few minutes, so it's not too big of a deal very often, but in these segments it's enough to pull your hair out. Plus there are some moments in the game where you navigate these nightmare sections which explore Max's psychological state. They're some of the highlight moments of the narrative, but unfortunately they task you several times with following a trail of blood with pitfalls everywhere. The second time you do this puzzle, the game also slows down time so it can be even more difficult to gauge Max's momentum. Oh, and every time you fall, you hear this annoying baby scream. Hey kid, I'd like to see you try to do this. No? And shut up, pal. Though honestly speaking, the flaws of this game are outshined by its positive attributes. The story is pretty basic, but it's more than enough to propel the narrative forward. The abundance of Norse mythology references add an intriguing new approach to world building, and some of the transitional moments in the plot, such as when Max jumps on a train to pursue a crime boss, or escapes a restaurant being consumed by a raging inferno, are great. Some of the voice acting is very memorable. Yet again, this game with one hand doesn't take itself too seriously, yet also tackles subject matters and themes most games don't even dare to touch. Let me put it this way, this game includes the murder of babies, drug abuse, and even sex trafficking. Yet it also has an Easter egg where you can start a war with some subway rats wielding pistols, who you then have to engage in a firefight. So in conclusion, Max Payne was an important stepping stone for the third-person genre. I'd say it's unlikely we would have had games such as Uncharted if it wasn't for Max improving on the formula with its variety of environments, weapons, interactive objects, combat mechanics, and narrative theme. If this Christmas you're stuck in the storm, maybe you just want to mete out some justice to low-life criminal thugs, Illuminati conspirators, and crooked corporations, then maybe Max Payne will satisfy your craving. Because if you can't ease the pain, you might as well kill it.